Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are when you see this video. Thank you for joining me, Dorothea, on Through an Orthodox Christian Lens. It is August 5th, 2025. I am going to be sharing a little bit more on the economy today and portions of this video with Ed Dowd. He's going to speak a bit on some things here. So I'm going to bring that up for you. All right, let's see. Let me see where I need to go here. Okay. Here we go. Listen to what he has to say here first.
The dollar reserve system is not going to go down into the night. The whole military industrial complex benefits from our ability to create dollars out of thin air and force the countries of the world to transact in our dollars. And they will fight to the death to defend that, whether we want to or not. I think there's more gold in Fort Knox than we know, and that's why it's not being audited.
If the past few years have taught us anything, Ed, it's that so-called conspiracy theories often just need a little more time before they become facts.
This is speculation on my part, but I do think that Jerome Powell's point is being political. The real economy, underneath the numbers we've seen in the last year and a half, has been abysmal. This is the biggest asymmetric trade I've ever seen in my life. This could end up being an enormous disaster. I suspect 40 to 50% pullback. The housing crisis, which we think, like I said, is a white swan, very predictable, slow-rolling problem that can't be avoided. If you have a $12 trillion real estate market that starts to take on losses, it will be impossible for them to hide the losses. That means run.
What should you? What should you go out and buy then?
This is The Real Story with Michelle McCory.
Is back up. Equity markets are hovering at record levels. The S&P well below the 100,000 estimate. And prior months revised down by a staggering 258,000. The employment rate also rising to 4.2%. Which brings us to housing, the linchpin of American wealth, and possibly the next big failure point. According to my next guest, Edward Dowd, we are already in the early stages of a housing-led recession. Dowd argues that the housing market is quietly cracking. Affordability is at historic lows, and delinquencies are ticking higher. He calls this the white swan collapse, not a black swan, not some unforeseen shock, but a visible, predictable, slow-motion breakdown that the mainstream is choosing to ignore. Dowd is a former BlackRock portfolio manager and is currently a founding partner of Finance Technologies, a leading macro research firm. He's known for spotting cracks before they break the system. And Dowd says that crack is housing and that a collapse there will have ripple effects that could hit the credit markets, the equity markets, the banks, and your portfolio. So is housing the first domino in a much larger chain reaction? Is this the final phase of the everything bubble? Could this lead to the banking sector consolidation that Dowd has warned about before, which ultimately ushers in a CBDC? How does gold fit in here? What happens next? And what can you do about it? Let's ask Ed Dowd. Ed, so good to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining us.
An honor to be here with you, Michelle. Thank you.
All right, Ed, I'm really looking forward to unpacking your meticulously well-researched and data-driven report, The Danger of a Deep Worldwide Recession in 2025. We will begin there, but I also want to explore some of your more speculative thinking, especially your theories on why the gold in Fort Knox has not been audited since 1953. Now, some may call that conspiracy-driven, but if the past few years have taught us anything, Ed, it's that so-called conspiracy theories.
Well, we have to go back a little bit to a call we made in 2023. We were, and other economists were predicting a recession at the end of 23, beginning of 24. We have early cycle economic indicators that have been back tested, that have been proven to predict recessions quite well. And our call ended up being wrong. And the metrics that we were following did start to rise into 2024, but never got to expansion territory. So we were very perplexed why the recession never came along. So we started to investigate why we were wrong, because we asked the question, have the laws of economic fundamentals changed? And the answer, as we are about to talk about, is no. The recession was delayed, and it was primarily delayed by unprecedented illegal immigration and record deficit crisis level spending in 23 and 24 by the Biden administration. That held up a very fragile stock market. It injected new consumers into the economy that were getting subsidies, and it put a floor on rents. And that delayed the recession, but it also added to the deficit, and it was a sugar high that's not sustainable. President Trump was elected on stopping illegal crossings and deportations. So the flow of illegals has stopped. So the floor under the housing market is starting to ebb away. We're seeing in real time, since we put out our report in January, we're 6 months forward and we're issuing other reports focused on real estate, and all our early leading indicators are rolling over. So we're even more confident now in our call than before. And just to understand, this illegal immigration was the elephant in the room. It's an economic elephant in the room. We brought in officially 12 million border crossings. There have been estimates as high as 20 million, maybe even higher. So let's call it 15 million illegals came into the U.S. in a very short period of time. For you to understand what normal net legal migration is, it's 1 million a year. So this was an unprecedented, very well thought out, very well implemented logistical operation. And the government did give direct money, and also they did wash a lot of the money they gave through NGOs that facilitated this illegal mass immigration.
Yes, and many would argue by design that mass illegal immigration was facilitated in order to change the voting demographics of the country. But again, that's just speculation. But I get your broader point that the U.S. economy's resilience in 2023 and 2024, largely a mirage, fueled by loose immigration enforcement, to put it mildly, aggressive deficit spending, and record savings from COVID stimulus, which you've touched on before. So now you're saying that housing is the canary in the coal mine, that we're headed for a recession, and that the housing market is already cracking. So walk us through your thesis. What data points are you seeing that corroborate this and that others are ignoring at this point?
Well, we're seeing new tenant rents. They started rolling over in the fourth quarter. Very good leading early indicator. It's not very well followed series. We're also seeing, and I'll just read off the chart here we have in front of us, housing units under construction, total units are rolling. Housing units authorized by building permits are rolling. Housing units completed are rolling. And housing units authorized but not started are rolling. These are all very good leading indicators that are predictive of a slowing and potential price degradation in the housing market. So we have low affordability. We have a overbuild, especially multi-tenant housing, which we highlight in one of our reports. And we're going to be issuing a report next week that packages all three of these reports that go into very detailed analysis and show all our graphs and charts work, regression analysis, for those who want to check our work. But again, we made the call in early January based on Trump's policies on immigration. And now we're starting to see the indicators rolling. So we're even more confident that our call is correct and housing market is going to correct. It's not the end of the world. The good news is the consumer is not as leveraged as they were during the 2008 crisis. As prices correct, we expect there to be a rebound on the other side led by the millennials entering the market. But the only variable that can correct this current problem is price. And even if the Fed starts lowering mortgage rates, that'll take time to work its way into the economy, or not mortgage rates, interest rates. They have no control over mortgage rates. It'll take time to work its way into the economy, about 18 months. So a recession is unavoidable. The other problem we have is a stock market bubble, which we had a dot-com bubble that caused a mild recession that then we were taken out of that recession by housing. So now we have the twin problem of the stock market bubble being led mostly by 7 stocks, 40%, 36 to 40% of the S&P 500 is 7 stocks. The market is very narrow. Underneath the market, there's indicators suggesting that all is not well. Small caps have not confirmed this rally. The Dow Jones Industrial has not confirmed this rally since the April lows. So we think we're close to a realization that things are not well. The other problem we had that's been well documented, and Trump is talking about this today, is the non-farm payroll numbers. They were either through gross statistical incompetence and or fraud, there were imaginary jobs that were reported in the non-farm payroll establishment report. You got to remember, the non-farm payroll is just an estimate, and then later on, months later, the real numbers are figured out. And the non-farm payroll is supposed to be close to reality. we've seen since the QCEW reports, the quarterly census earnings and wages, which is reality, the actual jobs that were created, there's been about 1 million to 1.5 million difference. So there was definitely something going on under the Biden administration. Trump today just fired the head of the BLS department that is responsible for non-farm payroll. And the economy, the real economy, has been weaker than most suspect for a long time. The problem is, because most people pay attention to the non-farm payroll, the capital markets, the Fed, and corporations have been making malinvestment. They've been investing on bad numbers. So as we start to see the truth come out, this could happen very quickly, the reallocation out of stocks into bonds. So these are interesting times. I don't see how there's any way the Trump administration can avoid a recession.
Okay. So, lots of information there. I'm going to jump over to this area here. Go from here on this.
I tend to agree with that, but there's also another reason. Martin Armstrong has been saying that gold is moving to the U.S. out of Europe, primarily to prepare for war, which is not a very, nice thought to think of, but I think both things are happening. I guess today we just got an escalation with China and Trump. So, there's a lot of geopolitical risk out there that we need to pay attention to that can pop off at any time. We got Ukraine, Russia, we got Palestine, Gaza, and Israel and Iran, and we got Taiwan, China. We have Pakistan and India. There's a lot of geopolitical conflict, and if Europe is preparing for war, which they might have to do because of their pension system is a disaster, and those in power need an excuse to reset things. These are very interesting times, and gold and flows of capital are starting to indicate that there's something afoot in Europe particularly.
But you're saying that Europe is sending gold into the U.S.?
That's what Martin Armstrong said.
In anticipation of war? Wouldn't they want their gold accessible?
If you think there's going to be a conventional war in Europe, you'd want your gold to be safely secured in a country like the U.S. As opposed to in your own vaults. This is obviously very theoretical, but
correct.
You don't want the gold in your central bank if there's a problem.
Well, let's talk about the prospect of war. I believe you once said that war will be caused by those who seek to become the next world reserve currency, or whatever system that follows. I've often maintained that I do not see the U.S. willingly giving up its status as the exorbitant privilege of being the global reserve currency. Trump has said that this is like a war. He says that the BRICS are trying to destroy the dollar.
BRICS was set up to degenerate our dollar and take our dollar as the standard, take it off as the standard. And that's okay if they want to play that game, but I can play that game too. So anybody that's in BRICS is getting a 10% charge. But what they're trying to do is destroy the dollar so that another country can take over and be the standard. And we're not going to lose the standard at any time. And if we lost the world standard dollar, that would be like losing a war, a major world war. We would not be the same country any longer. We're not going to let that happen. The dollar, you ever hear the expression, dollar is king? The dollar is king. We're going to keep it that way, okay?
But, Trump has said that it's like losing a war, that it's not going to happen, not under his watch. You mentioned escalations. We're seeing that with Russia. President Trump says he's now moved 2 nuclear submarines after Russia's Medvedev has warned that things are escalating. Medvedev said that each new ultimatum that Trump makes towards Russia in pressuring an end to the conflict with Ukraine is a threat and a step towards war. That's coming out of Russia. Trump then goes and moves some submarines. How do you think this plays out? Do you think that we could be on brink of some kind of war with maintaining reserve currency status, the real agenda here?
That's hard to know. I'm not in the room. I'm not privy to a lot of these talks, but I watch what's happening. and global geopolitical conflict is a problem we need to watch. It's not something that you can predict. That's why we're hitching our tail to the housing crisis, which we think, like I said, is a white swan, very predictable, slow-rolling problem that can't be avoided. But these things would only add to the uncertainty, and clearly war is not in anyone's interest. I can say this, the dollar reserve system is not going to go gently into the night. The whole military-industrial complex benefits from our ability to create dollars out of thin air and force the countries of the world to transact in our dollars through the petrodollar, the SWIFT reserve system. We because of our position, are able to create money out of nothing, and the military-industrial complex feeds off that, and they will fight to the death to defend that, whether we want to or not.
Yep. Yep. That's right. I have a little, okay, I'm going to share this article as well, just to add to it. U.S. on precipice of recession. Moody's. Donald Trump's tariffs and immigration policy are pushing the American economy toward a downturn. And you'll notice that Edward Dowd said that the immigrant workers were helping to keep the economy bolstered, up. But the deportations have actually changed that, which is kind of strange, but that's what he's saying. I mean, the whole system is not in the right, it's not really where it should be, in my opinion. So, U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs and immigration policy are pushing the economy toward a downturn. Moody's chief analyst Mark Zandi has warned. He described the U.S. as on the precipice of a recession. The warning followed a Bureau of Labor Statistics report showing the U.S. added an average of just 35,000 jobs a month from May to July, less than a third of last year's pace and the weakest since 2020. Experts say the slowdown signals weakening economic growth. Other indicators have also been bleak. June consumer spending rose only 0.1% after inflation. Prices climbed 2.7% year on year, the highest since February. And factory activity contracted for the fourth straight month as orders and jobs fell. The economy is on the precipice of recession. That's the clear takeaway from last week's economic data dump, he says. Consumer spending has flatlined, construction and manufacturing are contracting, and employment is set to fall. He warned that inflation above target leaves the Federal Reserve little room to revive growth, especially under Trump's policies. It's no mystery why the economy is struggling. Blame increasing U.S. tariffs and highly restrictive immigration policy. The tariffs are cutting increasingly deeply into the profits of American companies and the purchasing power of American households. Yes, people need to understand that when those when goods are imported from another country and they come in, the company that takes in those goods has to pay those taxes, those tariffs. Fewer immigrant workers means a smaller economy. Isn't that ironic and strange? But that's what they're saying. Since returning to office, Trump has tightened restrictions on illegal immigration, planning to deport 4 million people over 4 years. A move many warn will trigger severe labor shortages. He has also imposed tariffs on hundreds of U.S. trade partners, framing them as a reciprocal strategy to secure better trade terms, protect jobs, revive manufacturing, cut deficits, and fund tax reliefs. Well, the problem is that the way he's doing these tariffs, the way he's pressuring people and bullying them, it's more like bullying. It's more like an act of like war. The way that he puts these tariffs on, it's like he threatens countries instead of just doing this in a fashion that's not so aggressive and cruel. Okay, I'll get into India's things later in another video, but he, as he was saying, we can't give up the dollar. It's going to be it's akin to a war. Well, yeah, I think I think this issue of the dollar, which everybody has known for a few decades now, a couple decades at least, that with the dollar going that down, not being the main use of currency in the world, I think that's the core to what leads to World War III and to its apex, its climax. I think that's the main issue. And then, of course, Trump's saying, he talks like he's king of the world. I mean, really, I just, it's been very difficult to sit there and listen to him. I mean, it's just annoying to no end that there is no humbleness, no humility. It's like he's not allowed to do that. He can't have humility. And so, he's trying to stop the inevitable. BRICS didn't start with replacing the dollar. They were going to exchange, they were not going to bother with the dollar. They were just talking about exchanging, trading with other people in their region in their own currencies. But I think at this point, yeah, if I were them, I'd drop the dollar too. Would I want to be totally browbeaten and bullied all the time and threatened? I don't think so. The American empire's spot at the top is over. I'm just going to remind people of two saints on this, what happens with America. There's another saint that says America will feed the entire world and then they will starve. That one is not in this particular group of saints talking about the America, but this one, a Russian saint known as Aristocles, had foretold that America will feed the entire world, yet in the end it will face destruction and lose its status as a global superpower. Well, we can see this happening, can't we? We can see this happening for sure. And then, of course, this one, by the elder who wishes to stay anonymous, he said this, I don't remember what year this was, but it's either 2021 or 2022 or some, not very far along. It's between 2020 and 2022 that he said he's talking in this interview. He says the global economic collapse will begin in America. The dollar will become worthless and the euro will vanish entirely. The financial breakdown will occur within an hour at midnight while the world sleeps, unaware of what is unfolding. In the words given, this moment will mark the lockdown of the banks. So, as you can see, what is happening with the economy? It's heading in that direction. It's really... and the war. I mean, things are heading toward what has been prophesied. So I wanted to share that with you to just give you an update on that. And then I will be back later, I think. Thanks so much for watching, for following my channel. I hope you're having a great evening, morning, or night. And till next time.